Since taking office as President of the United States, Trump has threatened to shake up the old order. But is he being undermined? Some of his supporters argue that there are powerful efforts at play to stop him, and they point to an entrenched structure with vested interests that may even be more powerful than Trump himself.
The deep state, although there's no precise or scientific definition, generally refers to the agencies in Washington that are permanent power factions. They stay and exercise power even as presidents who are elected come and go. They typically exercise their power in secret, in the dark.
Talk about what exactly is the shadow government.
This is not a conspiracy. You know, we don't trade in that at the American Center for Law and Justice as attorneys. What we are talking about here is the deep state, government bureaucracies and agencies and the people within who are not directly appointed by the President of the United States. They're not political appointees, they are careerists.
The Pleiadians are the ancestors of the European peoples, including the Slavs, the Germans, the Norse, the French, the Italians, the Dutch and the Spanish. This also includes the English, who are a mix of several of these people. The ancient Greeks called them Pleiadians, the population that were the ancestors or forerunners of the Greeks. If you come from European stock, you are a Pleiadian. There are 7 Pleiadian planets that are inhabited by humans, and they all orbit the same giant sun, Alcyone, that our sun orbits. So, you could say that we are all part of the same system. We Earthlings are not alone. We are being watched and protected by a flotilla of starships that is in orbit around our sun, out beyond Neptune. They came here to Earth because they and their planets were at war with an invading race called the reptilian overlords. The reptilians had invaded 2 human worlds and exterminated the humans there. The Pleiadians have several bases in what we call the asteroid belt, and a large maintenance base on the dark side of the moon. We are far out on the fringes of the Alcyon system, and have been subjected to varying degrees of light and darkness dominion. So even though many of the people of Earth are based on Pleiadian warrior colonists that were landed in Europe 3,600 years ago, we are different, as the energy of our planet Earth is very different. Because of this difference, we Earthlings are a bit more creative, and evolved in different ways from our Pleiadian forefathers. Our technologies have taken us in different paths and are of great interest to the leaders of the 7 worlds. Pleiadians live amongst us, go to our best colleges and universities, and work at the best technology companies, especially the computer, communications, cell phone and military ones.
Do you believe in aliens?
I'm absolutely convinced. That's all there is to it.
Do you also believe that UFOs have come to Earth?
There has been and is an existing presence, an ET presence. And I spent millions and millions. I probably spent more as an individual than anybody else in the United States has ever spent.
Do you imagine that in our space travels we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?
You don't have to go anywhere.
You can find it here?
Yeah.
Where exactly?
It's just like right under people's noses. Oh my gosh. Wow.
They look very much like us. All white European stock comes from the original 50,000, who landed here 3,600 years ago. They are far ahead of us in space technologies and have been fighting for us against a common enemy for several thousand years. This common enemy is called the reptilian overlords, and they keep trying to invade and conquer this area of space. There has been extensive combat between the Pleiadians and the reptilians over our planet and the other 7. Nibiru, the home planet of the Anunnakis, is a mobile scout planet for the reptilian overlords. It has been in orbit around our sun, well out beyond Pluto, for around 50,000 years. It is so far away from our sun to make it easier to escape orbit when it goes mobile again. The Anunnaki were driven off. That is why Nibiru is still in orbit around our sun. Their mobile planet technology requires natural diamonds and gold to function, and they have used up their own resources. Meanwhile, the Pleiadians arrived and defeated the reptilian overlords here on Earth. As part of that effort, the Pleiadians have isolated the Anunnaki and prevented any further contact with Earth. The reptilians spread their DNA around many of the peoples of Earth: the Black, Arab, Indian, American Indian, Australian Aborigine, Chinese, Japanese, Jewish, and many other native peoples. All were created as slaves by mixing the Anunnaki genes with primates that were evolving here on Earth. The Anunnaki were the ancient gods of India, Sumer, Egypt, Greece, Rome, the Aztec, Mayan and Incan, and the Jews. The Anunnaki are not our friends or allies. They created millions of slaves as cannon fodder for their 30,000-year civil war between Enlil and Enki. The Pleiadians evolved from primates on their own 7 human-inhabited planets. Their evolution was not impacted, hijacked by the introduction of reptilian genes, as happened here on Earth. Throughout most of our human history, the Anunnaki were the gods, and they demanded that we build all kinds of stone structures to worship them. Understand that Earth is considered to be an enemy world by the Pleiadians. But it is also considered to have friendly Pleiadian human populations. If it were not for these Pleiadians humans on Earth, the Pleiadians would have dropped big space rocks on us a while ago and repopulated Earth with Pleiadian humans like they did in Atlas and Maya. The Anunnaki are, themselves, a slave population of the overlord reptilians. They had been conquered and had their DNA modified to be mind-controlled by their reptilian masters. The Anunnaki are reptilian, or lizard people, and were scouts for their reptilian overlords, which are also called Dracos. Being good scouts, the Anunnaki sent a ship to their Draco overlords about this wonderful new planet, our Earth. Eventually, after about 50,000 years, the Dracos arrived. When the reptilian overlords arrived on Earth, about 5,000 years ago, they ended the 35,000-year civil war between Enki and Enlil, and threw the Anunnaki off planet Earth. Enlil and his contingent were sent back to Nibiru, without the golden diamonds. Enki, who lost the civil war, could not return without facing certain death, stayed here on Earth, but moved down into the hollow Earth. Many of the Anunnaki have had children with their Jewish followers, so there are a few Nephilim, or demigods, down there. He has sent many of his followers up here to the surface, to keep track of our technologies and to try to influence our politics. Abraham was the high priest to the Anunnaki, Enlil, otherwise known as Jehovah. His brother, Enki, is the Yahweh, from the Old Testament. The covenant was made between Abraham and Enlil. In return for collecting diamonds and hoarding them, Enlil would return the Jews to their administrative rule and kingship upon his return to Earth. Enki is still alive, and calls himself Zorah, the Father God. He is down there in the hollow Earth with the lost tribes of Israel. He has been interfering in our politics for thousands of years. The covenant is the reason that the Jews have been in control of the diamond industry for thousands of years. Natural diamonds are the only fuel that can make Nibiru mobile again. There is a Pleiadian sun, called Tagata. This is where all the Germanic peoples of Earth came from. When the US Navy confronted the German secret base in Antarctica, New Swabia, in 1947, the US was routed by disk sources that came up out of the ocean and had beam weapons. The New Swabians are still under the ice, but they have used their flying saucers to establish a base on the far side of the moon. Are the New Swabians working with the Pleiadians? Most assuredly. The New Swabians have been integrated into the Pleiadian forces in Overwatch on planet Earth.